It was a Sunday morning in March 2020. Britain had just entered its first ever national lockdown. Streets were empty. The world had stopped. In a quiet village in West Sussex, a delivery driver pulled up to a modest home in Woodmancote. He dropped a package at the door, knocked, and left. It was the most ordinary moment imaginable. He was the last person to see any of them alive. Kelly Fitzgibbons was, by every account, the kind of woman who lit up a room. Warm, devoted, and fiercely loved. She was one half of an identical twin. Her sister Emma had spent 40 years finishing her sentences, sharing her secrets, knowing her the way only a twin can. Kelly was a legal secretary, a mother, someone who, in Emma's own words, made the prospect of life without her feel incomprehensible. Her daughters were her world. Ava, 4 years old, beautiful, angelic, already reading books to anyone who would sit still long enough to listen. And Lexi, 2 years old, cheeky, full of life, with the signature Fitzgibbons curls that ran in the family like a birthright. From the outside, they were a picture-perfect family. But pictures, as we'll come to understand, can lie. Robert Needham had been with Kelly for over 14 years. He was 42. A builder. Physically imposing, outwardly unremarkable. To friends, to family, to anyone looking in, he was a devoted partner and father, a quiet man, a family man. That was exactly the story Kelly told, again and again. What she never told anyone, not her twin sister, not her father, not a single soul, was what was happening behind closed doors. Because the text messages don't lie. In the months before March 2020, Kelly's phone told a completely different story. She messaged Needham asking him to be civil in front of the girls. She told him she dreaded coming home. She begged him not to bang doors and shout. She told him, quietly, desperately, that she was getting out of his way, because she could see how angry he was. On February 5th, she sent him a WhatsApp message, short, direct, exhausted. "I think we should have a break and see how we both feel." He replied, "If that's how you really feel." She never left. What was building inside Robert Needham in those final weeks? The picture that emerges is one of a man quietly unraveling, though no one around him knew it. He had a long hidden history of mental health struggles, depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, none of it disclosed, none of it treated, all of it buried under the surface of a life that looked, from the outside, perfectly normal. He had a secret cocaine habit. He would disappear for days at a time, leaving Kelly alone to manage 2 toddlers, a house, and the growing weight of a relationship that was slowly suffocating her. And then came the money. The couple had borrowed nearly $20,000 from Needham's own mother. Then, on March 20th, the British government announced a national lockdown. No tenants, no income, no way out. Kelly messaged her friends and family about her worries, about the rent, about what lockdown would mean for their finances. Robert Needham said nothing to anyone. He was already planning. Here is the detail that stops you cold. On March 20th, the very day lockdown was announced, Robert Needham walked into a registered firearms dealer and purchased a shotgun. He had held a shotgun license since 2016. He told authorities he needed it to shoot rabbits. His future mother-in-law, Pam Fitzgibbons, would later stand before an inquest and ask the question that cuts to the heart of it all. A gun that fires 6 shots. Why do you need that to shoot rabbits? No one had a good answer. Because the truth is, Needham should never have been granted that license in the first place. When he applied in 2016, he lied. He failed to declare a prior police caution for theft. He failed to disclose his depression, his anxiety, his suicidal ideation. The interviewing firearms officer flagged concerns, even recommended a formal warning letter be sent. That letter was never sent. The case was transferred between police forces, Hampshire to Sussex. Something fell through the cracks. A box wasn't ticked, a file moved, and a flag disappeared. And in 2016, Robert Needham was handed a legal shotgun. 9 days before he killed his family, he bought another one. Saturday, March 28, 2020. The first Saturday of lockdown. The Needham household looked, on the surface, like hundreds of thousands of homes across Britain that night. They ordered a takeaway. They stayed in. And in the early evening, Needham called his half-sister. They FaceTimed. The whole family appeared on screen. Little Lexi was jumping around, full of energy. Ava was reading to her aunt, showing off, the way 4-year-olds do when you know you're watching. Kelly smiled. Robert smiled. It looked, to everyone watching, like an entirely unremarkable Saturday evening. They said their goodbyes, logged off. And then, through the night, something strange unfolded. Robert Needham sat alone and began donating small amounts of money to charity. The Red Cross. Shelter. He forwarded a joke video to someone on his phone. He went through the quiet, bizarre motions of a man settling accounts. Whether Kelly knew what was coming, we will never know. What we know is that by the time the morning came, she and her daughters were gone. The delivery driver came and went. Then silence. When police eventually entered the home, they found Robert Needham, Kelly Fitzgibbons, Ava, Lexi, and the family dog, all dead from shotgun wounds. Needham had turned the weapon on himself last. The village of Woodmancote, a place of country lanes and quiet gardens, became a crime scene. Forensics. Tape. Officers standing outside a house where 2 little girls had been reading books the night before. The country was in lockdown. The news broke anyway. And Emma Ambler, Kelly's twin sister, the woman who had shared a face, a childhood, a lifetime, received a phone call that would split her world permanently in 2. In the months that followed, an inquest attempted to answer the questions that haunted everyone who knew them. Why did he do it? The answer, when it came, was both precise and maddeningly incomplete. Assistant Coroner Bridget Dolan QC was legally prevented from making a finding of criminal liability. Needham was dead. But she did not mince her words. She called the act heinous. She concluded that Kelly, Ava, and Lexi had been cruelly and needlessly killed. Unlawful killing for the 3 victims, suicide for Needham. As for motive, the financial pressure, the collapsing relationship, the hidden mental illness, the cocaine, the lockdown closing in around him. The inquest could outline the ingredients, but it could never quite explain the recipe. The why remains, in the end, unanswered. Emma Ambler could have disappeared into her grief. She didn't. Instead, she channeled the incomprehensible loss of her sister and her nieces into something purposeful and furious. She began campaigning. She met with government ministers. She called for an overhaul of Britain's gun licensing laws, for independent oversight, rather than leaving life and death decisions to individual police forces who could lose paperwork between transfers. She called for a national gun hotline, a way for people to flag concerns before a license was ever granted. She asked, on behalf of every family who might come after hers, a simple and devastating question. How many warning signs does a man need to show before someone takes his gun away? Kelly Fitzgibbons never told anyone she was afraid. Maybe she didn't think anyone would believe her. Maybe she was protecting her daughters from the truth of what their father was. Maybe she was protecting herself from having to say out loud what she could feel in her bones. We'll never know. What we know is this. Ava was 4 years old, and she was already reading. Lexi was 2, with the Fitzgibbons curls, and she never stopped moving. And on a Sunday morning in March 2020, while Britain stayed home to protect the people it loved, a man with a legally licensed shotgun made sure they never got that chance. The delivery driver came and went, and the house stayed quiet. In memory of Kelly Fitzgibbons, Ava Needham, and Lexi Needham,